I'm Dr. Mike Smith from the Great Business Stories of St. Louis, and today I got Mike Martin. Mike, introduce your company and tell us a bit about it.
Sure. I'm Mike Martin. I'm the CEO and owner of Mike Martin Media LLC. We're a video production company located in St. Louis, Missouri. We create videos for corporations, medical institutions, educational institutions, and nonprofits. We do this not just in St. Louis, but all over the country. And we even have international clients that we work with.
Excellent. So how long have you been in the business? How long have you been doing this kind of work, and then how long have you owned your current firm?
Sure. So my career after college, I had a degree in mass media production, and I went to work in television as a broadcast journalist. I did that for about 10 years before starting my own company. Mike Martin Media has been in business for 16 years.
Wow,
So I've got a total of about 26 years of experience creating videos.
that's great. So what made you decide to take that plunge that they called in the E-Myth the entrepreneurial seizure, that all of a sudden one day you decided to go open up your own company? What was your entrepreneurial seizure that made you do that?
Well, I had always fantasized or dreamt about owning my own business. Towards the end of my career in television, I noticed that there was an opportunity in video production. It was at the time when HD cameras were first becoming affordable,
Mhm.
when editing equipment was becoming more available to someone who didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
And I saw that a lot of the most established video production companies in St. Louis were still using kind of an old method of
Okay.
production, which included bringing a giant truck and a lot of people and all this equipment to do what I realized could be done in with new equipment, with less people, with less money. Um, but I didn't quite have the courage to jump away from a decent paying job in television.
Right.
But when the recession hit in 2009, um, the television station I worked with merged with another television station, and 95% of the people that worked at the station I was at got laid off, and I was
Hmm.
among those people. And even though I had a stay-at-home wife and three young kids, I decided, you know what, this is my moment. And certainly there were
Wow.
jobs I could have gotten in television in different markets, but I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. So it was really the circumstances of that moment that pushed me to have the courage to start.
Great. What a great story. And it takes a lot of persistence to have that happen, especially after a recession, then a layoff uh, like that. So, for those listening out there to the podcast, what's your greatest feedback that you would give someone who's decided to take that plunge and go do what you've done, start a new business?
Well, I think that, at the very onset of starting a business, the biggest problem is cash flow.
Hmm.
Um, you might have a great idea, you might be really good at what you do, but it takes time to build a client base. It takes time
Right.
to find customers and to establish yourself. And so you really need to have a plan to be able to get through the kind of financial hardship at the beginning. I know not everyone experiences that, but I think most business owners do. Um, and really being persistent and understanding that you're putting yourself in a situation where you're no longer going to work 40 hours a week. You're no longer going to be able to just step away from your job. It's something that if you don't let it consume you almost, you're probably not going to make it through that early portion.
Wow. Wow. That's excellent advice. So, how many employees do you have there at your company?
I currently have 14 full-time employees and a few part-time employees that we use from time to time during our really busiest seasons.
Great. And so, in today's world where talent's hard to find, what are some of some of the things that you offer your company to keep those quality employees? Because obviously they're not just people you can get off the street; they're quite talented at what they do.
Yes, it's certainly when you're looking for a skilled worker or a worker that has a very specific skill set, it can be hard to find. Um, I've over the years been able to make it so that our employees have health insurance.
Hmm.
Um, I have a bonus program that's based
Okay.
on the success of the company. The better we do as a company, the more everyone makes in quarterly bonuses. Um, I offer a decent amount of paid time off, and I try to be flexible with my employees as far as, everybody's got a family or a significant other or
Hmm.
other things outside of work. And if they're not able to manage those or have success with those or be happy with those things, they're not going to be happy at work. But it is a fine balance. It's a job. So, it's going to take away from those other things. But at the same time, I tend to be very flexible, hey, my kid has a dance recital in the afternoon on Wednesday. Can I trade some hours? The answer is always yes.
Right. Right. So, a flexible work environment, offering obviously the benefits. So, what's the culture of your team there? What's the culture that you have? Is everybody kind of in the office, or some remote, some in the office? How does that work?
So when the pandemic hit, we did go fully remote
Okay.
for about a year.
Okay.
Uh, Unfortunately, what I found was even though the employees did enjoy that to a certain extent, not all of them, a couple of people wanted to be in the office, but it- there was there was less productivity, there was less collaboration, and when
Okay.
you have a team of creative people like I do, it makes such a difference for them to be able to just pop into each other's office and say, "Hey, take a look at this, take a look at that." Um,
Right.
so I'm insistent on in-office workers.
Hmm.
If working at home is really the highest thing on your priority, then
Hmm.
this probably just isn't the place for you to be.
Right. A creative agency like yours, of course. So, you talked a bit about the pandemic and going remote. How did that affect your business? There's obviously constraints by the health department and everything else. So, how did that affect your business?
So a lot of what we do is out in the field.
Mhm.
So when the shutdown occurred, I immediately lost about 85% of the projects that we were working
Right.
on at that
Right.
time.
Right.
It was quite alarming. What we did though was instead of backing off, I kind of doubled down. I
Hmm.
invested in technology to be able to do live streamings, to be able to do remote interviews. We really shifted the offerings that we provide. Um,
Hmm.
and we found that with a lot of our clients, especially in the medical field, which comprises about 40% of our business,
Hmm.
more than ever, they needed to be able to communicate with
Oh, wow.
patients, with
Right.
families. And so we worked with them to find ways to be able to maintain that communication level. We also, found ourselves shooting video in hospital during the
Okay.
pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And that came with making sure that we had vaccinations, making sure that we had the proper protective gear,
Right.
that we were wiping down our cameras and equipment with disinfecting everything that we did when we were out. So it took a lot more safety precautions,
Hmm.
but over a little bit of time, we were able to really find a comfort level in being able to go out with the precautions that we had put in place.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's great. So one of the questions I wanted to ask, um, as you go through and look at your business and how, the pandemic changes, really, you do a lot of, obviously everything you do with videos online and all the apps. So how has that really changed in the last, 5 years or 10 years, whatever you recommend? How's that changed your business, with the whole, social media?
So certainly at the beginning of our business, most of what we were doing were videos for broadcast, like
Mhm.
commercials,
Okay.
but uh, event videos, nonprofit videos.
Right.
But as video became more and more accessible on the internet, when they were able to bring the technology up to speed so that video was easy to stream,
Right.
um, that opened up so many doors
Hmm.
for corporations, even
Hmm.
top 50 corporations,
Right.
to be able to utilize that medium to communicate not only externally, but internally. A lot of what we produce is internal communications, and in social media and just even internal computer systems that these corporations have made it possible, really for the first time, uh, for that to be something that was really beneficial. And over the years, it's just gotten more and more. I would say that, there was a moment where, and it continues, where people are making their own content, they're shooting their own video, they're able to post things themselves. And so we really have to focus on what we can offer outside of what someone can do on their own. And
Okay.
that includes like storytelling, branding, uh, all of these things that are super important to pretty much any organization. That and after a little bit of experimentation, these companies realize that, creating their own content was
Uh-huh.
just not effective, and it wasn't representing them in the way that they wanted to be represented. I can kind of
Okay.
compare it to, if you have a company and you put a big sign out front, you don't want that sign to be written in black marker on cardboard and taped to your
Right.
building.
Right.
You want that sign to look professional and
Right.
represent who you are as a company.
Do you guys do logo design and branding that way, or how do you
Uh,
work?
we don't necessarily do logo design, but we do logo animation. We bring
Okay.
the logos to
Cool.
life, and the branding usually comes from a marketing company. We're strictly a
Hmm.
video production company. We stay in our lane,
Hmm.
but we're so familiar with brand standards, and brand guidelines and the intricacies that go along with that.
Right.
And so having that knowledge and being able to immediately go into a company and understand how to produce a video, how to produce their graphics in a way that represents their branding and is consistent with how they want to represent themselves, turns out to be a real benefit for them.
Gotcha. So, what's your biggest pain point today in your business? What do you feel is the biggest pain point?
Um, I would say, we have it's our business is more cyclical than you might
Okay.
imagine.
Okay.
You know, during the December, January period, a lot of people are checking out. So a lot of the types of projects that we
Okay.
do for these companies and organizations kind of fall back for a minute.
Gotcha.
We see a
Hmm.
real resurgence from like March to say March, April, May. even
Okay.
into June. And then there's a
Okay.
little slowdown around July, August, and then it picks
Mhm.
back up again. So
September. Mhm.
dealing, being able to maintain your full-time staff uh,
Right.
during, having the capacity during the busy times, but then also not losing too much during the slow times
Okay.
um,
Right.
becomes a pain point. I always say if we could just spread out all of the projects evenly throughout the year, I I probably wouldn't I could probably get away with two or three less people, um,
Right. Right.
and our capacity would grow in that way.
Right. Right. Gotcha. So if there was, if there's any new business that you would think about getting in, or maybe tell us where you think multimedia is going, is there any new opportunities that you're seeing coming up? We had a big change with the internet, then we had a big change with the social platforms. You see the next, what big change do you see coming next?
You know, I think that AI is going to bring a lot of change in the
Okay.
industry. It's certainly something that we're trying to stay on top of.
Right.
Over the 16-year period, we've completely changed the technology that we use at least four times, maybe five
Right.
times, including the cameras, the editing systems, the
Right.
computers.
Mm-hmm.
And AI is bringing a lot of a lot of shortcuts to some of
Mm-hmm.
the things that used to take us a long time.
Okay.
So being able to leverage that and pass that savings on to our clients
Mm-hmm.
um, is really uh, the biggest thing right now. I think that if you own a production company or maybe any company, you really
Mm-hmm.
should be paying attention to how AI can be effective in your business.
That's a great point. You talked about a little bit about capacity, with the AI and any of those things you can help that will help you, help drive your capacity up as well, where you've got utilization by your people that's available. That's great. Um, so how do you balance your personal and your professional life? You've started this business a while back. You had, a stay-at-home wife with three small children, and today, how do you balance those, your personal and
I
professional life?
I really balance I I I really balance it by standing on one toe on a tight wire, crossing over Grand Canyon.
Right.
It
Right.
is not easy to find work-life balance
Right.
when you own your own company.
Right.
As I've grown, the the biggest part of trying to find work-life balance is being able to trust your employees to take things off of your plate that in the
Mhm.
beginning you thought you could never let go of, whether
Right,
that's
right.
creative control or client interaction, whatever it is, you have to find the right people and you have to be able to take a risk in letting them take some of these things off your plate, knowing that they're not going to do it perfect in the beginning.
Right.
Not there's going to be some moments, it's going to cause some issues, but if you know that and you're prepared ahead of time, it's
Mhm,
worth trusting your people. If you have good people, the truth is they want to take that stuff and they
mhm.
want to show what they can do. And by trusting them with it, it's actually very motivational. And you'll find that you might be underestimating those folks and
Right.
need to stop doing that.
Yeah, sometimes they can surprise you, right, with, how well they're doing something that you thought was once mundane. It's exciting for them to do and develop into.
Yeah, and
Um,
sometimes you find that they do it better than you did.
yeah, that's true. So what's one of the most exciting projects that you can tell us about that you've done that really sticks out in your head over the last, 16 years or so?
Um, there was there's so many. We have such a
Right,
wide variety
right.
of projects. I mean, we had a crew this year out on barges on the Mississippi and down in
Oh, wow.
Louisiana shooting training videos for barge workers and recruitment videos. But
Oh,
I
wow.
think that one of the most, I guess, meaningful projects that I think we did is that we did a series for a company called bioMérieux, which makes medical diagnostic equipment. Um,
Okay.
and the series was about sepsis,
Oh,
um,
wow.
and how a lot of people pass away from sepsis. It's an infection that
Mm-hmm.
gets into your blood.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to combat it is through rapidly diagnosing the exact infection so that targeted antibiotics could be used as opposed to
Okay.
overarching antibiotics. And so
Mm-hmm.
for that project, we traveled around the country interviewing people who have had sepsis.
Oh,
We
wow.
traveled to Switzerland and spoke with the world's expert on sepsis and antimicrobial resistance. And I learned so much, and it's such an important thing. People don't realize there's antibiotics in almost everything, including
Mm-hmm.
plastics and in the food you eat because animals have been fed that. People are
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of work to lower that, but the more antibiotics you have in your system, the less they work.
Right.
And so it's a really big issue for humanity. And
Right.
I just really enjoyed being able to tell those stories and bring some awareness to the community.
Wow. And that's quite an education as well. So,
Yes.
that sounds like a great project. You, those probably come few and far between. That sounds like a very exciting one for sure.
You would be surprised. It, I like to say I know a little bit about everything.
Mm-hmm.
The education you get when you're doing such a wide variety of work, when it's these corporations and education and nonprofit and medical. Um, One thing that's a project that stands out is an entrepreneur who um, put giant tarps over these um, massive pits on hog farms.
Oh, okay.
Pits were full of hog dung.
Right.
And what he was able to do was put these tarps over, which then raised and captured all of this gas, which he was then able to turn into diesel fuel. In
Wow.
fact, one of these hog farms, the methane that they could capture and turn into diesel fuel was enough to fuel all of the semis that run through Missouri. So
Wow.
really, really interesting projects, and there's so many stories.
Right. So we talked a little bit about your different types of productions that you do, educational training, et cetera. What other types of video and production do you do that would be unique for everybody to hear about?
Some of the recruitment videos that we do
Okay.
are really something that you might not think of for a video production company, but it's we've been in oil fields shooting to recruit workers there. I mentioned the
Hmm.
barge. Um,
Hmm.
and then even large corporations are
Hmm.
looking for very specific types of people. And
Hmm.
when you can create video content that really explains and shows that, they tend to have way more success in being
Hmm.
able to find those people, bring those people on, and let them know from the get-go what the company's about and what they're looking for.
Gotcha. That's great. So who is your ideal customer? If we think about an ideal customer, who's the ideal customer that you look for?
It's so we have such a wide variety of companies. We work with,
Hmm.
very small businesses to
Hmm.
Fortune 50 companies.
Okay.
Um, for me, an ideal customer is someone that is looking for a long-term partner,
Gotcha.
someone that knows that they have content to create constantly and over time, and to be able to build a relationship with them that allows us to build up a library of footage that can be used, that allows us to completely understand their company and their branding and what they want and how they like things to look. And in the end, it creates this partnership that really pays off for the client quite well, because they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. They don't have to guess about budgets. They don't have
Right.
to go looking around all the time for a vendor.
Hmm.
It becomes a seamless partnership where we really become a part of their team. And that ends up being satisfying for us and for the client.
Great. What do you think your number one characteristic is for your success at your company? What do you think your number one success is?
I I firmly believe that the character of a person makes more of a difference than even their skills or their work. Obviously, you have to be at a certain level of skills.
Right. Hmm.
You have to be a professional, but I would rather have somebody that's right at the level that I need someone to be, that has a good character,
Hmm.
than someone who's super amazing, but at their job, but doesn't have the interpersonal skills or really the
Okay.
character that we're looking for. And when I hire people, um, kindness is one of the things
Right.
that I look for. Ability to collaborate. Uh,
Hmm.
the ability to work with others well, because
Hmm.
we're out in the field and we're shooting with video with clients.
Hmm.
Um, what they really remember is how we made them feel when we were
Right.
there.
Wow.
And that was one of the things at the beginning that I was worried about. A lot of our clients, we have because of relationships that I've built over many years. And it's so vitally important that when my employees are out doing the same thing and I'm not there, which I'm not anymore,
Hmm.
that they're able to accurately represent that same patience and grace and gratitude, that I was able to provide when I was in the field.
Great. Great. So you've done a lot of work over the last 16 years. Are there any awards that stand out that you guys are really proud of that you've achieved?
Yes, so we have won 2 Emmy Awards
Oh,
through
wow.
our time. We've also been nominated for 4 others.
Well,
We won a nonprofit advertising award.
mm-hmm.
Um, awards are kind of a funny thing when you're in
Hmm.
a corporation.
Yeah.
They matter, it seems, more to the client than to
Right.
anyone else.
Right.
A lot of awards are kind of pay to play.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
You gotta pay to be able to get the
Mhm.
award. And I've
Right.
seen some companies that I think we do better work than that, tout
Mhm.
their many trophies. Uh,
Yeah.
but a trophy to me doesn't mean nearly as much as a Google review.
Gotcha. That's right. That's great. Anything else that you'd like to share with us on the podcast today before we close out here?
Sure. One of the things that I try to keep in mind as a business owner, and I think is beneficial to all business owners,
Mhm.
is that things are never as bad or as good as you
Oh,
think they are. You can't you can't sustain riding an emotional wave, getting too confident or getting too down. You really have to be logical and reasonable in understanding that there are ups and downs, and don't let them take your emotions up and down. It's hard not to do that, and certainly you're going to do it to a certain extent, but you
mhm.
really have to keep the big picture in mind, keep the long-term goal in mind, plan for that, follow your plan, and stay as even as you can.
Well, that's great advice. So give us the name of your company again before we sign off. So we'll have it here at the end of the track.
Sure. My company is Mike Martin Media. Again, we're located in St. Louis, Missouri, down in the Grand Center Arts District, which is one of the fastest growing and most exciting arts districts in the country, according to Newsweek earlier this year. Um,
Great.
so yeah, we're happy to take on new clients, and we always will discuss any projects or even concepts or thoughts that you have for video production for free. We're always willing to talk anything through and help you figure it out.
That's excellent. I'm Dr. Mike Smith for the Great Business Stories of St. Louis, and thank you for visiting us today.
Thank you, Dr. Mike.